This is From the Mezzanine, a motion picture podcast. We are two guys from the Midwest who have a passion for all things film and TV. We are not professional reviewers. We do not trade opinions for early screenings or special access from studios. And most importantly, our reviews are not on behalf of any organization or publication that may have a larger agenda. Each week, we put our own money on the line to tell you what is the best and the worst in theaters, on streaming services, and on video on demand. We are not here to beg for your donations or advertise men's razors and meal kits. From this point forward, we are talking all things movies, television, and pop culture.
That was my buddy Matt. My name is Chuck. Welcome to From the Mezzanine. And like he said, we're just two dudes from the Midwest. You know, he was my Sherpa up the mountain of cinema in our early 20s. From the first time I met him outside the early screening of Iron Man 2. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
But today we're going to be covering a lot of ground. Whether it's, news or, movies that are, in theaters available to you or, or just sitting waiting for you, on your streaming device in your living room. And to get us started right off the bat, sorry, I have to keep looking to my right here to look at my other screen. We got the DC Fandome. So, right off the bat, what the fuck is that? As somebody who, I've been to Comic-Cons, I know nerd culture and all that. But When did they start doing that, and what exactly is it?
Okay, so that was started last year, kind of in lieu of the pandemic.
Okay.
And basically, it's a roughly 3.5, 4 hour stream where they just kind of pile on everything DC. It's like movies, TV, a tiny, tiny bit of comics, and then products, everything DC. And so this year, my biggest takeaways were sort of the trailers that we saw and the behind the scenes stuff.
Okay. Because there were a lot of the DC extended universe stuff that they were dumping. Like I said, I know that the Flash got a trailer, whatever the Batman is got a trailer. Mm-hmm. It still is unclear to me how these things are supposed to fit together, or if they're even supposed to fit together at all. Yeah.
Well, I think at this point we have two universes going, basically.
Okay.
There's Flash is still in the Snyderverse. Shazam, I believe, is still in the Snyderverse.
Okay.
Batman is off in his own universe now.
It's an Elseworld story now.
Yeah. But see, the thing is that they're also doing a Gotham PD show for HBO Max that's going to be in the Robert Pattinson Batman universe.
So that they are just embracing making this confusing. They're deliberately making this even more as confusing. So it's in keeping with the DC comics that I know and love. Yeah, at least from the 80s and the 90s when they literally were making up new universes every other day, it seemed like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And because I don't know, as one of those those weird people who wouldn't let go of what the Snyder Cut represented and what it could have been, it still is kind of fitting that it's a dead end and everything else still needs to continue without it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It still gets to be a dead end, and I still can cling to whatever it was to me or was going to be for me.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, going forward, what the hell are they gonna do? Because the movie that Joss Whedon gave them, the jumping off point he gave them, really isn't there. I don't think I've ever actually seen Joss Whedon's Justice League all the way through. I think I've turned it off halfway through every single time I've tried watching it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess it's fine. It's just it's cut to all hell. You can tell the studio interfered a bunch, and it's full of his stupid jokes, his sort of CW TV jokes, that type of thing.
The guy did build the modern CW with Buffy and Angel, though. Like it wouldn't
Oh,
exist without him. So yeah, that
yeah,
makes I see what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, as far as fandom went, I mean, I personally I don't care about any of the TV stuff, and there was so little comics talk that it's pretty negligible.
Yeah.
But did you watch the Batman trailer, the
I
Robert Pattinson?
not the latest one.
Okay,
I'm kind of trying to keep myself pure for that
okay,
movie because the more that that gets shown to me, it just puts me in this weird place because like there's the cynic voices I hear. Is this, oh, it looks just like the Nolan verse. We've already done this. Why are we doing it again? But I also like the idea of Colin Farrell it be underneath so much fat suit and makeup that you don't even know who the fuck he is anymore. So
yeah,
I'm more excited for it, like knowing nothing about it, than I would be like being super plugged into what I know the gist. It's
hmm,
Seven with the Riddler. Yeah,
yeah, pretty
from
much.
what I understand, that's what it is.
Yep, that's definitely the look. I actually saw the trailer. They had the trailer attached before Dune, so I
Yeah,
saw it
yeah,
before Dune, and that was very impressive. But yeah, I mean, it's Seven. It looks like Seven. The Riddler looks like the Zodiac killer.
yeah,
Like that's the
yeah,
look they're going for. If you've ever, I mean, you've obviously seen Zodiac, David Fincher's
yeah,
Zodiac.
yeah.
Yeah. Matt Reeves obviously cribbed the look. You remember the Zodiac, the scene where they're at the lake in the daytime, and then he
Yes.
stabs to death. Yeah, it's that the Riddler looks like that. You
Okay,
know,
and that's fucking terrifying. Like
yeah,
that still to this day is one of the most like chilling like movie sequences that I can remember. And every time I watch the Zodiac, that part always like fucking makes me stop whatever I'm doing, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'm watching this now. I have a bad habit of just putting shit on in the background while I do other things, but that scene always just fucking grabs me by the throat.
for sure. Yeah.
But that's the
Yeah.
vibe,
That's the
and
vibe.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the vibe. I mean, we don't really know much more than that about it. They actually haven't. The only reason I know that is because they've shown what the toys look like. They haven't actually
that's
shown the Riddler yet.
the
Um,
toys always give everything away though,
yeah,
don't they? Like that's how everything gets spoiled.
pretty
It's
much.
just
Yeah.
if you pay attention to the toy market, you're fucking yourself over if you care about spoilers.
Yep, pretty
Well,
much.
so but that's kind of yeah. So it's everything we knew it was coming. It's nothing we weren't already kind of ready for. I guess
Yep.
like Shazam. I guess is not Shazam specifically, but I guess Black Adam. Getting Black Adam out there's been a long time coming. I feel like they announced Dwayne Johnson doing that role like 10 years ago, and they're
Yeah.
only finally now making the movie
Mhm.
after all this time.
Yeah. They had kind of like a mini trailer for that, and it looks cool. It's kind of nice to see Dwayne Johnson kind of going away from his family friendly image, his like
Yeah,
incredibly sanitized image. It seems like they're doing the actual character of Black Adam justice instead of doing Dwayne Johnson's
yeah.
version of Black Adam.
And see, my only like experience with like reading Black Adam is actually from reading 52,
Okay.
that giant maxi series that DC did a while ago. Because the whole like the gimmick behind that was that the big three were like disappeared from the earth. They were
Mm-hmm.
they were deep in their feelings because of identity crisis. I think it was. So they went off and were no longer there. So a bunch of other characters had to like stand up to like replace them. And Black Adam was one of like the bad guys gone good, like protecting the planet,
Sure.
during that story arc. But there's a lot to that character that because he like runs a country, at least like in that iteration of the character. So he's kind of like Doctor Doom in a way because he's got his own fucking like he has a whole country to take care of. It's like his
Yeah.
concerns are a lot more acute than just I need to save the planet. He's like, no, I fucking care about my country. None of you care about me, so I'll do something about it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. But
So yeah, I mean that's pretty. Those were my big takeaways. Where the trailers were the coolest part. And I don't really have much more to say
okay,
about it because they didn't really show a whole lot. Honestly, they teased the Michael Keaton Batman and Flash, but you didn't see anything.
Yeah,
So
like they're just telling us it's happening.
yeah.
Like the suit still fits. They're
Hmm.
deeply concerned with that.
Yeah.
What do you think about them going in that direction? Because I guess it's both companies now dipping into the well, seeing okay who can still look good with enough CG slapped on them, and like what old iteration can we bring to the modern situation? Because we have Doc Ock and basically every Spider-Man character under the sun coming back for whatever
Hmm.
Marvel's doing. But are we going to see Brandon Ruth Superman? Is that going to be a thing?
I don't think so. I mean, I think
Yeah,
it's definitely, I mean, profit motivated. So
yeah.
nobody cares about Brendan Routh Superman.
That's a fair point. That's a
So
fair
it's
point.
like, he's not going to get anybody in the theaters. Michael Keaton will. Michael
Michael
Keaton
Keaton will.
Batman will get people in the theaters. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think they're doing it for that. Get the old people in and get the young people in.
Yeah, give everybody a reason to show up.
Yeah.
And as a DC fan, it's also like I literally was harping on this to Broadshow years ago. I was just like, DC needs to not fucking bother trying to be Marvel. They just need to do all this wacky shit that I know that they can do because that's all that they have.
Yep.
Like you're blending continuities and yeah. So like, but we're never gonna get Pat Fleck and not Pat Fleck, Pattinson Batman and Batfleck in the same movie together.
No.
Unfortunately, even though
Yeah.
it'd be cool, but they're not gonna do that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
For sure. Yeah. So
too bad.
yeah.
But so in other news, so like that's DC news. We have to talk about Marvel a little bit. The
Hmm.
Eternals is a thing. And what is the reaction to like from the? I know that a lot of that crowd, are kind of shilly, but what do they have to say about it? Like, what are they trying to signpost us to think about this movie before we've actually seen it?
Well, okay, this is a very fluid story
Okay.
because so here's what happened. About a week ago, social media reactions were ready where the movie studio says go post a tweet about what you thought about Eternals, and then
Mm-hmm.
everybody says this is what happens with every movie nowadays. Everybody goes ape shit. They say that, oh my god, that was the best movie, best Marvel movie ever.
She's the best Marvel movie I've ever seen. Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here we are a week later, and actually, as of tonight, people could post their full reviews. And the reaction, surprise, surprise, is way, way more muted, way, way more conflicted.
Oh
Um,
no.
I, I have it pulled up right here. And right now we're sitting at a 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. And most of the reviews, the funny thing about Rotten Tomatoes is that if somebody gives it a 3 out of 5 or a 3.5 out of 5, they still count it as a positive review.
Really?
And so we're seeing a lot of 7s out of 10s, and we're seeing a lot of 3 out of 5s and a lot of 2 out of 5s. And yeah, it's very mixed. And the word that I keep seeing over and over is dense. This is a dense movie,
Huh.
and this is like swinging for the fences, but failing, sort of.
Okay.
Um, and if people don't know, it's directed by Chloe Zhao, last year's Best Picture winner, and
Odd
it's
choice. She always seemed like a weird choice to me
yeah,
for
it's
any tentpole movie. Because like you had posted this on social media, but like her movies are just misery porn, and that is such an accurate descriptor for them. Like
yeah.
yeah,
Her last one was about
especially.
yeah, her last one. It was very it was basically Frances McDormand driving around the country, being homeless and working at Amazon warehouses,
Which
and
is
it was very depressing.
it just occurred to me though, like recently. Like I don't know why it didn't occur to me while I was freaking on Amazon Prime watching it. But like is that like why Amazon bought the movie? Cat. you get off of there or I'm gonna hurt you.
I don't know. You know what? Honestly, I don't know if they did. I actually think it was actually on Hulu.
Bear with me. Bear with me here. So it wasn't. It was a Hulu original, not a
It was a
Prime.
Hulu.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it was a Prime original.
No, it
Continue.
yeah. So basically, it was a Hulu movie, or at least it went to Hulu first, and I think the deal was that they allowed Chloe Zhao to film. They allowed Chloe Zhao to film in the Amazon warehouses
Okay.
as long as she didn't paint them in like too bad negative.
So people, I'm just ignorant and I conflated something. But like because like it was on Amazon when I saw it.
Okay.
So that's why, because like, it was when it won Best Picture. Because like they rolled it out as, unless I'm misremembering.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
was Hulu.
Okay.
But it might be on Amazon now, or maybe I don't know. Maybe
See,
you rent it.
I created an interesting angle about this movie because I ended up being not really being very interested in it, and now she's making what like based on the ads alone, it looks like the most sappy and insipid superhero movie ever.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I mean,
like there's so much navel gazing. That's all that trailer is these all powerful beings going like, "Oh God, I wish we could do something to save the world." And yeah, I don't know. It makes me not care at all, and I'm amazed that anybody can care about these characters because, Grant, like,
well,
is like, yeah,
this is what happens with every superhero movie: is they take characters nobody cares about,
mm,
and suddenly like everybody pretends like they have a history with them.
yeah,
Nobody gave a shit about Eternals a year ago.
no,
Nobody, and now suddenly there's a bunch of comic series and people are pretending as if these were Avengers level superheroes.
yeah, yeah.
They're not, and they're very. But I mean, here's the interesting thing about this story is, so in the past couple days, there's a lot of think pieces online being published about
Whoa.
sort of spoiler culture.
Okay. I'm just kind of
And
yeah. Just a comment. I was just scrolling through. I have the Rotten Tomatoes screen up with this,
yep,
and as I'm scrolling, the top like 6 reviews are like 4 out of 5 are rotten. It's just like what's going
yeah,
on here?
yeah. It's pretty weird for a Marvel movie, but basically the conversation around this movie has switched to a discussion about spoiler culture, because essentially what Marvel did is they invited a bunch of like shitty influencers, Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers to the premiere.
Not the
And
usual nerd influencers.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they were there too.
Okay.
They were there also, but this was sort of I think a test to see what this is sort of the first Marvel movie I think where TikTok has been as big as it is,
Yes.
and they want to see kind of what TikTokers do with that when they've seen a movie before everybody else. And the answer to that question is they're going to spoil the fuck out of it,
Yeah.
and they're going to tell you what the post-credit scenes are, whether you like it or not. And people are going, it's hilarious.
So
people
they behave no better than 4chaners.
pretty much,
Yeah, it's like I don't know why we expected anything differently from them.
yeah. I mean, they're the most those people, they're the most clout chasing people in the world. And if they see a movie before you do, they're gonna tell you about it. And that's exactly what they did. So I don't know what Disney expected, but
Let the cat
yeah, I don't know what Disney expected, but
asshole.
basically,
Come on.
it's not. I don't think it's good for their bottom line, because they're sort of alienating all of the actual reviewers, I guess, and the people who actually care.
Yeah, because it's not just the cinema snobs, and the critterati who are getting the short end of the teat here, as it were. Yeah, it's the dedicated, true believers within the movie review press and the you know what I mean? They've been good pushers of the product for a long time. And now you're good where you're at. We have someone else sitting at the top of the table now. It's not you. It's not you anymore. Sorry, Collider and like Nerd Army, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's like I kind of unplugged from nerd culture at large. But
Oh,
whoever is the biggest, the ones that are pissed that they don't get invited to Star Wars, like openings anymore, like
mhm.
they should have known this day was coming, because like you're only relevant as long as you're relevant. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and like because could have foreseen TikTok becoming a cultural force? It literally made dead boomer rock stars, millionaires again overnight because their song hit at the right time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
nobody wants to read, these days nobody wants to read a 2,000 word review of a movie when
yeah,
you can watch a 6-second TikTok that says that was great instead,
yeah.
like it's like
So and
it's
so showed up. Oh, so crazy, and
yeah,
then it's like, okay, now I know what I need to know. I don't
yeah.
need to be told why Salma Hayek and Angelina Jolie are like the new leaders of the Marvel, cinematic universe, like, that kind of thing. No one's reading that crap anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah,
All those sites are becoming like top 10 list sites,
well,
like all those like
yeah,
comicbook.com, collider /film.com, they're all becoming like top 10 reasons why you're gonna love this new movie, or
hmm,
whatever. They're all becoming
yeah.
like clickbait
Why
sites.
fans of X should be really excited for Y.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
you heard that a lot around the main topic of our show today. I kind of saw a little
Oh
bit of
yeah.
that about like getting everyone primed and ready for Dune, but
Yep.
that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
But needless to say, this is the kind of Marvel movie that I'm gonna find creative ways to see. I'm not gonna be going to a theater to see it, but I yeah, I don't know. I have to confess, I haven't seen a Marvel movie since Endgame, and
Okay.
I'm not too interested in like the television world. Even like I might give WandaVision a watch just because it sounds at least somewhat interesting
Hmm.
on a creative level. But I never had much interest or hope for the Eternals. But it is like you say, the more fascinating thing is to observe the behavior of the institutional critics, like that are out there, and see how everyone is, puppeted around, by Disney to try and just get somebody to fucking see their fucking movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, I'm not one of those people anymore. Unfortunately, I used to love going to the latest whatever Marvel was putting out, but
Yeah.
it's just like it's too much like chips for me these days, I guess.
Yeah, I mean they're like 23 movies in now, and the big problem, I've seen everything up until this point, even the TV shows,
Mm.
and the problem is Endgame was such a nice cap on everything, and it was so big, it was so bombastic that all of these shows now seem like peanuts.
Hmm.
It's all like I mean, WandaVision was cool because it was something different, but um the other ones, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then what was the other one?
God, what was it? But not Agents of Shield.
No, that was a long time
That was a
ago.
long time ago. Do they have Hawkeye out, or is that
No,
two
that's
coming
coming
out?
out,
That's two
but
coming out.
I feel like that's going to kind of be the same way, where it's like it's they're I think they're kind of having an identity crisis. They don't know where to go now that everything kind of ended with Endgame, and it's like they don't know where to go, and so
Yeah,
they're trying a bunch of stuff. Oh, it was by the way, it was Loki. That was the other
yeah,
show.
that's what it was. And
Uh,
see, Loki had some neat ideas from what I read.
yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah, they're getting I think they don't know where they're going, so they're trying a bunch of stuff. And
yeah,
I think the answer to their sort of problem is they're going multiverse basically.
yeah.
So
It's quite obvious. That's literally in the title of the Doctor Strange movie that Sam Raimi's directing.
mhm.
As a which is probably why so much of the Sony Spider-Man stuff is bleeding into the rest of it, especially with his involvement and the fact that Sony will just give anything for a buck at this
Oh
point
yeah.
when it comes to Spider-Man. But that does kind of put things in a like that's a good point you're making about how they really don't know where they're going. And like my gut, like after watching Endgame, was they should stop right here.
Yeah.
There should just be no more.
Wait.
Yeah, wait
Yeah.
10 years, do it again in
Yeah.
10 years. But there's
Yeah.
no
Exactly.
point doing any more of these. Like you've done it. You've done it as big as you can go.
Yeah.
And just to circle it, circle back to Chloe Zhao and the Eternals.
Hmm.
That's exactly how, like you say, peanuts. Because it's like, okay, so they just sat back and watched while all this other shit went down, and now I'm supposed to buy that they're the ones we need right now. I just don't feel it.
Hmm.
Just as a observer, I'm not a true believer anymore. Sorry, Stan Lee. I'm just not one amongst the family, as it were.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We'll
yeah,
we'll,
we'll
we'll
see.
see. Yeah, we'll see. It's I think 2 weeks now until Eternals comes out, and so yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. Personally, I'm probably gonna see it in theaters because I want to see kind of what, because it is different at the very least. You can
Yeah,
say it's different, and so
that's
it's
true.
not like it's not like a Thor 2, or it's not like a Iron Man 2, or it's not like a Avengers Age of Ultron. At the very least it's something different.
But
And
you know what kills me though? All
yeah.
of the quippy bullshit in that trailer. Like there's a line that I've heard like 7 times. Because it's just always in every spot, no matter how big or large. It's like, what didn't save the world last time? Your sarcasm. It's like it's drilled into my fucking head, and it's never gonna
Yeah.
leave me. But it's that makes me go, okay, I don't buy that these people are these ethereal, eternal beings not of this earth, because they talk and act just like they would in any other movie, like people in any other movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any other time period.
yeah,
They talk like they were people who were born,
today,
yeah, today
yeah,
in the
yeah,
80s or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So,
But
but to move on,
yep.
so we had an interesting thing happen at the box office. Was it last week?
Yep. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
it wasn't the weekend we're currently in. It was last weekend.
yeah.
Yep.
And that was the because where we have two different things going on, two different movies, so so to speak, going head to head.
Yep.
One is this massive prestige project that would have been right at home in Oscar season like 10 years ago, if not more, and a totally unnecessary horror like reboot sequel thing
Uh-huh.
that no one really was asking for either, and is and they just make those to make them. Like, we can't put like a governor on horror movie sequels.
Mhm.
But pretty, I guess predictably, everybody went out to see Halloween Kills and not The Last Duel.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, so here's the numbers. First weekend, Last Duel made $4.8 million on a over $100 million budget, which is absolutely abysmal. And then Halloween Kills made about 50 million, which is considered a resounding success because I believe the budget was 15 million because of course it's a Blumhouse movie. And
Yeah, and they literally just take a shit and the movie makes money.
yeah,
Like, when, yeah.
they throw $5-10 million at a movie, and that's all they're willing. I mean, it's a good strategy. Jason Blum has made that his kind of strategy, and he's pretty much made money on every single one
Yeah,
of the movies.
as a businessman, he's got it fucking clocked.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can't shit talk him for that.
Yeah,
He knows what the fuck he's doing.
for sure. Yeah. I think the interesting question with this is, what does this mean for like streaming hybrid releases, as far
Yeah.
as releasing a movie on streaming and theater same day, because with Halloween, you have a movie that did absolutely amazing. And as far as we know, most of the people who watched that movie watched it in theaters. So
And
do you
that is
think,
pretty shocking because yeah, how many people actually have Paramount Plus?
yeah, I don't think it's many.
Not
And
that too many, I would imagine.
yeah, and I mean you can subscribe to Paramount Plus for $4.99 and then watch the movie and immediately cancel your subscription. And even with that incentive, people still went out to the theater and paid, 10 to $20
And plus concessions.
plus
Yeah,
concessions.
yeah,
And yeah, and they I guess in that scenario you're paying for the experience more than anything. But
yeah.
people were willing to shell out, double, triple the price to watch it in a theater. And
Hmm.
so, personally, I think that for bigger movies like this is kind of going to be the end for the hybrid model, especially when we get out of 2021,
Yeah,
because there's certain movies that studios have already committed to that model. But once we get into 2022 and they don't have those commitments, they haven't told us that they're releasing them on streaming simultaneously. I think they're going to stop, at least with the big movies. Maybe the
yeah.
smaller movies, they won't.
It really does make sense for what you would call like a mid major release. You know, like it was like a low time distribute, like what Lionsgate used to be before they became a much larger company over the years. But they
Yeah.
used to be a company that would they distribute their own stuff, but they'd only put out like maybe a handful of movies a year.
Mm-hmm.
And but now, I guess with the advent of Netflix, what a lot of those companies would do is just okay, bypass the Weinstein Company completely or whoever it was, and just sell it right to Netflix.
Yeah.
And so the farm of the farm like engine of cinema, like of the industry, is in a weird place because they have no relationship with these major studios anymore like they used to, because they used to have like a stable of little guys underneath them that they would feed content to, and now it's like, oh, just give it right to Amazon, give it right to Netflix, or yeah, even Apple's buying shit now. So yeah, what are they gonna put out? Like in theaters as it becomes more and more like Spielberg and Lucas, prophesied. It's going to be a Broadway experience. Like
Yeah.
how far away are we from like $100 movie ticket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely possible. And um, the other thing to consider too is the Netflix and all the other streaming services, Apple, they're all releasing their films, like the Macbeth movie that's coming out with
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson, or not Samuel L. Jackson, with Denzel Washington. With Denzel Washington, they're releasing that in theaters strictly for awards, because if you don't release your movie in theaters, you don't get
Yeah.
awards. You
If
don't
you
get it. You
yeah.
don't get Oscars. So that's the other thing to consider is the smaller movies.
Yeah.
The award baity movies. They're going to be released in theaters still,
Yeah.
because as long as that's a requirement to win Oscars,
Yeah.
basically.
You has to run for like what, like 1 or 2 weeks in New York and LA.
Yep, I
Yeah.
believe it's 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because that's traditionally why the holiday season was such a dumping ground of prestige film for so long, because like it was just like, well, we want to get so and so an Oscar nomination for acting, so it has to come out now. You
yep.
know, released at the end of the year, people will see it in January and February. Like over Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as the last Duel is concerned, um, you know, $5 million on $100 million budget. Uh,
$100 million.
yeah, plus
Oh my
plus.
God.
So yeah, it's pretty bad. And um, I guess a lot of people are saying is this kind of is going to be the last hurrah for like um,
Poor Ridley Scott.
yeah, Ridley Scott. Well, he's really old. I think he's in his mid 80s. But I think this is going to kind of be a last hurrah for him in terms of like being able to make these type of movies
Yeah.
because um it's just it's nobody wants to see him. I saw it in theaters, I saw it, and it was a great movie. I thought it was pretty good, and I think there was about five other people in the theater when I went,
Which is
and
just too, yeah,
this
too
was
bad.
Friday. This is the
Oh,
day it came out too.
that's
Yeah,
a big oof.
yeah.
Because that's the thing. It's exactly the kind of movie that I do love. Like inside of me is a creaky like 80-year-old man who just wants to watch like sword and like sandal epics.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I am down for that. Like, and I love Ridley Scott's output in that regard. Like the director's cut of Kingdom in Heaven, way worth
Mm.
watching.
Mhm.
Gladiator is Gladiator, but even like weird obscure shit like the Christopher Columbus movie he made, like I think it's like 1492 Conquest of Paradise. It's a
Okay.
weird little deep cut. It's got Gerard Depardieu in it though, so it's so good because it's
Okay.
trash. But yeah, anything that he did that was a period piece, I am there for it. Like, and most period pieces in general, because I'm a history buff. I love that kind of thing, and I love stories that I don't necessarily know going
Mhm.
in, which is like I was intrigued by the source, the background behind the Last Duel,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize it had the Rashomon structure.
Yep.
Yeah, and,
Mhm.
and that also made me go, okay, well, maybe I need to actually take the time and go see this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. It makes a good use of that. It's not too obvious with that where
Mm.
the different point of views between the characters is like too obvious or too like so different that it's unbelievable. It's kind of the little things, facial expressions, body language is
Mm.
kind of different, and so it's pretty interesting in that respect. And I think it's worth seeing in theaters. But uh, if you still can, honestly, they're gonna pull.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, they're gonna pull it soon. They're gonna get it out of there because it's not doing
Because
good. And
let me tell you, like I went to Shaun of the Dead the weekend that the Last Duel and Halloween Kills came out. Like they had like a
yeah,
flashback cinema. So I went to Shaun of the Dead, and there was like 15, 20 people in that theater
hmm
just to just see a dead ass ancient movie that was basically run off of a DVD. So like, what does anybody know?
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, but yeah, I mean that's all. I want to just kind of point that stuff out.
Yeah.
It's because it's interesting more than anything. We'll kind of see what happens, but
So yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. If anybody has any interest in, just wanton gore, Halloween Kills has that for you. And if you want to see, is it Brad Pitt in a mullet? Not Brad Pitt, Ben Affleck in a
oh,
mullet.
yeah, Affleck and Damon.
They both
Yep.
just like the mullet budget on this film was through the roof.
Yep.
And next we're gonna veer into a topic that could be considered exploitative, but we're not going to be tabloid about it. Like we're not going to get into the specifics. If you know about a certain thing that happened this like last week or so, that there was maybe a name you heard, Helena Hutchins is how you
Yeah,
say her
Helena,
name.
I believe. Yep.
I'm just trying to get a picture of her up. I want to find one that shows her in her element. Yeah, let's see. I probably can't zoom in on it any more than I have, but I'll just throw it up there anyway. You'll be able to see a little bit of it on the screen there. There we go. I'll zoom in there.
Mhm.
I found a picture of her with like a really rad rig. It's like a shoulder mount, so the camera lens is like on her shoulder.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and she was a cinematographer. She's from the Ukraine. I don't know her full background, but she did have a pretty I wouldn't say extensive, but she had a filmography that included a lot of stuff that I had seen without even really realizing that she was involved in it.
hmm
God, if I could only
Yeah.
spell her name right.
I'll let you pull that stuff up.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna just kind of
I'm gonna,
say
yeah. What do you have to say?
so. Basically, Well, if anybody doesn't know, I mean, it's pretty out there at this point that basically what happened was on this movie called Rust, she was shot by a prop gun that had like a real bullet in it, and she was actually shot by Alec Baldwin.
Of
And so
all
that's kind
people,
of
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of why the story's I think probably gaining a lot of traction. But I personally don't have a whole lot to say about this because other than because I haven't seen any of her movies.
Yeah.
And but the one thing I will say is I don't think that like prop guns should be taken away like a lot of people do. I think it
Yeah.
was the fault. It was the fault of like a person, a very specific person
Yeah.
who fucked that up, and
Yeah.
it was a major fuck up. Um, the one thing I will say, I kind of it's kind of more, it's a little morbid, but I have a funny story about this. So,
Mm.
this past week I was at the Twin Cities Film Festival,
Yes.
and um, before one of the screenings, the director for the festival got up in front to introduce the movie. The movie was Come On, Come On, which I'll talk about a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And he started, before he introduced the movie, he started crying
Oh no.
in front of everybody, and then said if he basically explained what had happened to this woman, and he started crying, and then he asked for like a moment of silence, and it was way too long. It was probably like a 20-second moment of silence.
Ugh.
And it was like it was just really weird because I think he called her like an industry or like a colleague. He called her a colleague, I'm pretty sure. And it's like, dude, you're like a what? Like a mid-level
festival
like,
organizer? Yeah.
It was very strange.
Because like let's be
you'll
fair. It's like she was an up and comer. It's like she was in her early 40s. She was just like she had quite a few credits to her name, relatively speaking. Like, but the ones that I had seen were like I had seen Darlin',
Okay.
which is a fun little sequel to, or it's like it's the third in a trilogy of films. The first two were directed by Lucky McKee. One was called like they're about this feral woman who basically has misadventures. Like that's the fun way of describing what because like the first one was called like Possession or something like that. The second film is called The Woman, and the actress Pollyanna McIntosh, who plays the woman, directed the third film, Darlin', which is trashy and terrible. You really have to care about those first two movies to even be interested in the third one. But Hutchins was the cinematographer on that.
Okay.
And I had watched that in 2019 when it came out because for some reason I have a fascination with Lucky McKee and how he's able to make these gross little movies that he makes, because nothing he makes is happy. Like he made one movie called May, which is about this lonely lady who like sews corpses together to make a friend.
Okay.
He's a weird guy, and he works with very specific people, and Pollyanna McIntosh was one of them. She's been in a bunch of weird shit, like Hap and Leonard, if you remember that TV show. Like, that had a season.
Okay.
But the film that... Like, because I literally discovered this movie before she died, and I had downloaded it. I hadn't watched it yet. But it's from a filmmaker who made a movie called Daniel Isn't Real. That's a movie starring one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's sons, and it's about this guy who has this like imaginary friend that as a child, but then he brings his imaginary friend back to life as an adult to help him cope with social situations, basically, and then the consequences of bringing a malevolent entity into your head. And I was so I'd seen that movie, was interested in more from this guy. Because his second film is one called Arch Enemy, which is about a science fiction character, like a high fantasy, cosmic horror sort of a reality, gets like dropped into our world, essentially.
Okay.
It stars Joe Manganiello, the guy
Oh yeah.
who's Deathstroke in the DCEU and amongst other things. And it
Hmm.
did a really cool concept. The cinematography was out of this world. And then just from the trailer that I had seen, lots of really imaginative, you know, compositions and use of color and things like that. Really out there. And then I found out that that was this lady that Alec Baldwin just killed.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I guess I better enjoy what she put out, because she didn't actually get to make a lot of feature length movies. She has like two that that came out within the last like two or three movies in the last year or two in production on Rust. Obviously, when this happens, and that movie ain't never gonna see the light of day, is it? That movie's never gonna be completed.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's probably just too much bad juju associated with it at this point. So yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's like, I guess that's just to sum it up. It's like basically the reason why I'm looking forward to watching Arch Enemy, just because it looked really fucking cool.
Mhm.
And obviously she had something, otherwise people wouldn't be working with her, and it's just sad that we're not going to be getting any more from this artist.
Yeah,
And
for
yeah,
sure.
it is what it is, though. You gotta,
Mhm.
we all got to move on eventually. That's their mess to sort out, thank
Mhm.
God. I feel bad for everyone involved. But like you said, the the film festival in Minneapolis was going on, and you were able to catch a couple films. Like,
I'm sorry. What you cut out for about 5 seconds
oh, I
there?
did. My bad. Okay, you can hear me now, though?
Yep.
Okay. So the Minneapolis Film Festival went on
Yep.
this last weekend. What films were you able to see there?
Yeah. So just real quick, I wanted to touch on these. I don't have to spend a whole lot of time, but basically, I saw the new Wes Anderson movie, The French Dispatch, which opens everywhere October 29th, next week. And that was, I mean, it's a Wes Anderson movie. It's, you're gonna like it,
Yeah.
or
There,
you're gonna, and
it, yeah.
it has everything a Wes Anderson movie has. It has symmetrical shots, characters entering from the left or the right of the frame.
Ever changing aspect ratios.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like people, 60s and 70s music. He's working with a lot of the same people. It's pretty typical Wes Anderson. So the big difference though is it's actually like his first anthology movie.
Okay. Okay.
So
So kind of like
it
Buster Scruggs for Wes Anderson fans.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like there's an intro, and then there's three different sort of short stories, and then there's a epilogue. And the movie is about this newspaper from a tiny town in Kansas. And what they do is they get all of their once a week they publish a pamphlet in the newspaper where they sort of subcontract writers out of this tiny town in France called Ennui-sur-Blois, and very Wes Anderson
That's,
name.
God damn it, Wes Anderson. Like, I'm glad he thinks he's cute, you know?
Yeah. So it's basically three short stories about three writers, long form essay writers who are kind of based on Wes Anderson's writer heroes, I guess.
Okay. Kind of like how Grand Budapest Hotel was, kind of about something like that, or like Steve Zissou is about Jacques Cousteau. Like,
Yep.
there's all these, like, these movies are always seem to be about, yeah, like, individuals or artists in the real world, but then he has to make them his own somehow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Because
Yeah.
at the very end of the movie, he puts up a dedicated to cue card,
Okay.
and there's a list of about 20 names.
Holy shit.
they're all they're all long form essay writers from the real world.
Okay.
I think a
Okay.
lot of them
Damn.
A lot of them wrote for, I think, the Washington Post, I want to say.
Okay.
But yeah, to get back to the movie, basically, yeah, typical Wes Anderson. One story follows a artist in prison, and a story is being done on him. One story follows um, a French college where the students are revolting.
Okay, so like a student protest in like the '60s in France.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And then the third story follows Jeffrey Wright, who plays a food critic, who is following the chef at a French police station who cooks for the police officers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like, but he's a very, very, very good chef. He makes meals that are way too
Way too. Yeah.
fancy for police officers, basically. And
Okay.
but yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really good. As far as Wes Anderson stuff goes, I'm one of those weird people who thinks he's getting better with age. I know that a lot of people think that he peaked with Royal Tenenbaums.
No, I don't know how you could think that. Like
I know a lot of people do, but I don't personally.
yeah.
But
No, I, because that is the thing. Like, I remember very distinctly, like when I lived in Fargo, and like the Fargo Theater was our art house cinema that we'd go, get to see kooky
Mhm.
things in. Even though now I feel like Wes Anderson is in the multiplex. Obviously, like that's where he is now to an extent. Like
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
he's not just an art house guy anymore. But
yeah.
when Moonrise Kingdom came out, I just remember the hype and anticipation from that set and about how like awesome and great like it was going to be. And then I
Mhm.
remember when we actually got to see it, there were people like there's no other word for it. They were being hipsters about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Royal Tenenbaums, I like the least of his movies. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I have a soft spot for Steve Zissou for whatever reason because it's such a prickly movie, compared to everything else he's done.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like especially recently. But yeah, like this just looks like everything he was doing in Grand Budapest, but just taken even further. So I'm here for it, and
Oh yeah.
I look forward to seeing that one quite a bit.
Yeah, it's very visually similar to Grand Budapest, and a lot of the same people. The people he typically works with. And the nice thing about this is the last thing I'll say on the movie is that the nice thing about the vignetted structure, the
Mm,
anthology structure, is that he can get those huge actors to be in this movie because they need to spend less time on set,
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're only in like a 20-minute segment as opposed to an entire movie.
yeah.
And so there's people that show up for Willem Dafoe shows up. He has one line, and then he's in the background of one other scene, and then he's gone. You never see him again.
So this just occurred to me, like with this anthology structure, what he has enabled himself to do is basically make a bunch of American Express commercials with all of his friends and then package it as a movie. Because that is kind of it's the micro transactional nature of it all, just
Mhm.
in terms of production. It's just
Mhm.
like, well, I'm just making an American Express commercial. Like, can so and so show up for a day? Yeah, okay, great. That's what we're
Yep.
doing today. Yeah. But that is appealing though to me, like that description of it, because that is half the fun of his movies. Is okay, who gets the 5 second cameo that took like 10 hours of like wardrobe, before they could throw him out there, like
Mhm.
the bit in Grand Budapest where it's just this suggestion of concierges calling each other, and
Oh,
they like, and it's all of his guys, like even
yeah.
like Bob Backlund is in there for like really no reason, but it's just because they could get him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and that's how it is, and yeah, it's great. I highly recommend it. And then the other movie I saw was Mike Mills' Come On, Come On.
which for an
Um,
A24 film, there's not enough, pink and blue for this to
yeah,
be an A24 movie. Like I have some concerns.
yeah, it's completely monochrome, and I think the idea behind it was to kind of the movie is all about performances. It is 100%. If you're not there for the performances, you're going to be bored out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it basically,
it's like Her in that respect, another Joaquin Phoenix movie that's just all about his face.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
It's very dry. It's people talking in rooms basically. And just to kind of get a little bit of a plot synopsis out there. So Joaquin Phoenix plays Johnny, and he is the uncle to Jesse is his name. And basically what happens is Jesse's mom has to deal with a bunch of shit in her life. And so Jesse has to go stay with Johnny. And Joaquin Phoenix doesn't have any kids and he doesn't have much experience with kids. So it's
Mm.
essentially, I think the thing that Mike Mills was trying to get across was that kids have like important perspectives on life. Like they have important things to say and their points of view are important. And I think he does a pretty good job of getting it across. But my problem with the movie is I found it very forced, and I found everything sort of really inorganic.
Mm.
You can kind of tell that um, he had like a mission. He's basing it off his real life because if you look at his past movies, you have Beginners, which was a movie about his father, Mike Mills' father,
Oh, so it was
and then you have,
autobiographical. I didn't realize that.
yeah,
Mm.
it's not one to one, but
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where you take your real life experience and you turn it into a fictional story,
Yes.
sort of.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But
And
yeah, the reality informs the fiction,
yeah,
and inspired in that way.
yeah, and then his most recent movie was 20th Century Women, which was based on his mom. So he has a
I
movie
missed
about his
that one
mom.
completely.
Yeah, that was I think 2019,
Okay.
and that was about his mom. And then this movie is about his sort of struggles being a father. You can totally tell because he is a father now, and you can tell that it's kind of autobiographical for him, and you can tell he had a lot he wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I found it very like inorganic, and there's a lot
Okay.
of very like forced dialogue and forced like situations.
Very. What's the word I'm looking? Contrived.
Yeah,
It's
contrived,
yeah.
convenient, contrived, and it was kind of dull, honestly. Like at the end of the day, because I did, the movie has very little plot, and it's basically Joaquin Phoenix and this kid, who is I think his name's Woody Norman, the actor's name,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's getting a lot of buzz right now.
He's the Oscar baby this year.
Yeah,
Every
basically.
yeah.
Yeah, and Joaquin Phoenix is surprisingly restrained, and I guess I'll give him credit for that, for letting the kid kind of shine, because he kind of plays the movie as a 50-year-old schlub
Yeah. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
doesn't have much to say or do. And but yeah, I mean, I don't have really much else to say about it. I personally I just found it dull, and just I don't want to be too flippant, but I just found it boring. Like
Yeah.
that's for it.
There's a time and a place for a movie like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like picking up like a paperback while out at the lake. It yeah, you can really hone in on it and try and mine as much as you can out of it, but is it worth it? Are you getting entertained or thrilled, or is there like if it had a lot of insightful things to say, that might be one thing, I suppose. But like
Yeah.
with a movie like this, though, it's there's a time and a place for me to turn it on, and
Hmm.
yeah, I might not. I'll find it on streaming, when that day comes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the perfect place for it, honestly. So,
bear with me here. I'm just dancing back and forth between screens a little bit. We're figuring out how this whole we're not live, but just broadcasting, how this packaging all goes.
sure.
So that's what we'll get to what I was able to see in theaters very soon. Don't worry, we're getting there. Thanks for staying with us. We've been talking for an hour already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can, as far as like the streaming stuff goes, we can kind of just
we can
get it
burn
fast.
burn through that
Yeah.
First, okay. What are your thoughts on the premiere of season 3 of Secession?
Yeah, so Premiere, I thought it was great. I mean, I thought it was it's honest, it's more of the same, which is in this case a good thing. And just like really smart dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
really great characters, funny, like actually funny, not just like quippy like
No,
Marvel movie funny. It's like actually really
I
it
was
the
yeah.
the funniness comes from the characters organically. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
come from coming up with jokes and then just having the characters say them. It
Exactly.
comes from the character. And so yeah, I mean, I thought it was great, and I'm really excited to see kind of where it goes.
Yeah. See, I did something really dumb, and I just pressed play. I did no prep, so like I loosely remembered where things ended, but as I was watching it, I was like, wait a minute. I don't remember that fucker's name. I don't remember his character's name. Oh shit, I'm fucked. But yeah, like, but that's what made it entertaining because it's like I felt like as out of my depth watching it as all the characters felt dealing with everything.
Mhm.
So it worked, for me pretty well. And like you say, all of the humor just comes out of these actors bouncing off of each other. And
Yeah.
yeah, they've been given some lines to say, but they deliver them as though they are these people completely grasping at straws. Like everything that they say and do feels like the last thing that fucking occurred to them before they open their mouths. You
Hmm.
know, and just I don't know. I There was just, yeah, like you said, there's just lots of discrete, tiny little moments where like whenever like Kendall was calling people on the phone trying to recruit them, and they're just like, they're just instantly killing the call. But then
Yeah.
like you can just see in their eyes, they're like desperately, they're like, I fucking know that I should have taken that lifeline, but I can't because I'm being held hostage right now. By the patriarch. So the dynamic of everything was just right, and
Yep.
I have hope for then again, the show has never let me down. Like every season of it has been thoroughly entertaining, and yeah, it's just, but it is a concern. It's like how much further can they ramp? Like where, like eventually this is gonna have to jump the shark, or
Mhm.
it's gonna have to transcend. It's one or the other. Some shows transcend, or they jump the shark, and I just worry that they're gonna jump the shark this season.
Yeah, they have kind of been. I mean, there's only so many times you can beat down Kendall.
That's true.
So it's like I really hope that something good happens for him this season. But yeah, I mean, it is once you get past kind of just the joy of living with the characters and you actually look at the plot of the show,
Yeah.
you you're they're starting to get to a point where they have to do something different because a lot of the show is just um, Brian Cox asking his children what he should do, and then
Yeah.
they say the wrong thing, and then he just does something else
Yeah, and
entirely.
then they're just dead to him. Yeah, like
Yeah.
when Roman fucked up. Roman did everything he wasn't supposed to do.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
not Roman.
Not
It's
Roman.
not Roman. Yeah.
Instantly, just not Roman. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, then even Shiv, it's like she can't, because like she's only the one if she can pull it off what she's been tasked with, and she can't pull that shit off either. So yeah,
Yes.
who's left? Who's left
Mhm.
standing? God, and Shiv's husband, what's that character's name again?
Tom.
Tom. Fucking A.
Mhm.
If Tom somehow fucking winds up being the CEO, then it's good. Like I would love that because like I say, I'm getting the names back. So Tom and his foil are like the
Greg.
cousin Greg.
Greg the
Greg,
egg.
the king of that fucking show. Like I need those two to be in the same room together. So like whatever happens in the season, I need those two to be in the room together as much as possible because that's where like the best of season 2 happened, was between
Yeah.
those two. And as I was watching, the only thing that was missing was Tom and Greg going to war with each other.
Hmm.
But yeah, like Greg and Kendall just are just kind of they're the doofuses, so they deserve each other. But
Yeah.
yeah, but their partnership I just don't think is going to go very well.
Yeah, what I think we should do, just kind of thinking of this on the fly, is we should. I mean, there's been one episode at this point. Once, I think there's going to be 10 in the season. So once the
Yeah.
10th episode comes out, maybe that week we should do that as kind of our big topic.
Yeah,
Is
instead of just
just,
bringing it up week to week. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good
yeah.
idea.
So,
And that's honestly how we should treat most streaming series content.
mhm.
Because talking about it week to week isn't really relevant because a lot of people are just going to be watching it in one big go when they're able to, whether
That's
it's
true.
right away or later on.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you really and I don't know, like that old Grantland culture of just like having weekly like journal entries that critics would put out talking about all the TV they watched on Sunday night. That
Mhm.
era is gone and dead now too. Like
Oh yeah.
that ecosystem barely lasted, as long as
Mhm.
it did. But in but in keeping with that, there was a show that I started watching,
Mhm.
but I didn't finish it because it was only coming out like week to week or like in batches. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, one episode.
it's Only Murders in the Building. I guess
Mhm.
like I'm segueing because I picked that up right away just because I like the idea of Steve Martin and Martin Short, doing something fun and goofy, even if it is just like a Murder She Wrote retread, starring Selena Gomez, for the podcast generation. But seeing it on the list made me sit down and watch the rest of it because I was like, oh wait, I hadn't finished this fucking thing. I was like halfway through it.
Okay.
But what compelled you to watch it? Was it Nikki or?
So basically, I mean, I'll be honest, I saw a lot of ads before it started, like on TV, and I honestly thought it looked really lame. Like I thought that I was like, what is this? Like a half hour comedy about podcasts starring Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena
Selena
Gomez.
Gomez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Yeah.
how did that happen? How did that combination happen? And I only started watching it after the first, because I think it was a 3 episode premiere.
Yes,
They
that's how it was. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so once the first 3 episodes dropped and people started saying it was good, that's when I jumped on board.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really liked it. I mean, I don't have much to really say about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a fun show. It's really 30-minute episodes,
Yeah.
so you can just breeze through it, and it's not too big of a revelation. It has some interesting twists and turns,
Some
and
nice red herrings, like all good mysteries should.
Mhm.
Yeah. And ultimately after getting the full packaging of it, I was pretty satisfied with it.
Yeah,
If like a little infuriated, by the ending, because now they are in their own murder, and now Tina Fey gets to make a podcast about them in season 2.
yeah,
Yeah, like her character was the weirdest part of it that I felt really unnecessary. I don't know
yeah.
why she was in there. I guess because her podcast is the thing that brought them together in the first place, was them listening to hers.
Mm-hmm.
But
He
yeah,
might have been a producer,
definitely
so
that
I
would make
think I think
sense. Yeah.
maybe I think that might be why she's in there. But yeah, I thought it was a little distracting because of her celebrity, I guess. But
And is she just getting old, or is that makeup that she had on? I
I
hate
don't
to.
know.
I feel like I feel like an asshole
Well,
asking
she's
that question.
at this point, what, like 50?
Yeah,
Probably
like,
50s?
but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it looked like they were putting like most women of her age, when they put them in a film or in a TV show, the makeup department's working hard for them.
Oh yeah.
They really want them to feel like they're putting their best foot forward. But with Tina Fey in that show and Only Murders in the Building, it really looked like they were putting layers of pancake on her. And I don't know, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but she just didn't look like herself, I guess is what I'm saying. Because granted, I'm watching her in 30 Rock here and there, and then comparing her to today, and that's probably like 10 years worth of time, if not more.
Oh yeah,
Like, yeah.
definitely more.
So
Yep.
I just need to change in my mind what my expectations for Tina Fey are.
Yeah.
So I was listening to the last podcast at work earlier this week, and Marcus Parks has his side show that he does with his wife called No
Yep.
Dogs in Space, and they're talking about the Velvet Underground right now. And
hmm
like, where is this documentary that you saw? Is it on HBO or something like that?
Yeah. So this is a Apple TV Plus
That's what it is.
movie.
Okay.
I think they
So
bought it. It's not an original. I think they bought it from a festival or something.
okay. So in listening to that, I kind of have an understanding of who Lou Reed is or was, and how he became who he was.
Yeah.
But how is it a worth? Because like most, I haven't watched a good rock doc in a long time. Like, is this
Yeah.
one genuinely informative and like at least like orally interesting? As like an experience.
So okay, here's the thing. This is a Todd Haynes movie.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
this is
That
this is
answers that question for me then.
this is if you're looking for something informative, this is not where to look. I would recommend going back to your podcast
Okay.
because
Okay.
this is very um, it's very arty farty, and it's like there are shots in this documentary where they will show Lou Reed's face, and it'll just show his face for minute, like just a static shot of his face, a video. It's not a picture, it's a video of his face for like 5 minutes at a time. And
Ugh.
then they'll be playing like they'll be playing, the music in the background, and they there's very little information in it, and it jumps all over. They spend a majority of the time on Andy Warhol's
Okay.
time with them when they made the Velvet Underground and Nico,
Hmm.
their most popular album, and
Isn't that
so they
really the
spend
only album they released as a unit, or did they have more output than that?
the Velvet Underground and Nico.
Yeah.
So that was their only album. Nico is a singer from Germany,
Yeah.
and she went solo after that, even though her singing voice is terrible. And
It was the '60s. They could do whatever they wanted.
yeah. So they she left, and Andy Warhol left too after that.
Hmm.
And because he was kind of their sort of Sherpa for a while, he's the one who got them all their gigs. He's the one who put all of the cool art on their stuff
Yeah.
and and stuff like that. And so he left, Nico left, and then they kept putting out albums, and they have a lot of really good albums after that. I don't want to discount any of those albums, but they're
Okay.
definitely more rock and roll than sort of songs about heroin
Hmm.
all the time. And but the documentary spends tons of time on that album, and then once you get to the point after that, it's just like flash, 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 and that's all the other albums get. And then suddenly you're at the end of the movie, and they spend about a minute on the 70s, a minute on the 80s, a minute on the 90s, and then suddenly Lou Reed's dead. And that's
Okay.
that's kind of what happens. And so
Hmm.
if you want a comprehensive history, this is definitely not the place to look. And
That's too bad.
it's an audio visual experience more than
Yeah.
anything.
So this was just something for Todd Haynes to noodle on, and then package. So like, was he like actually getting like his own interviews from people?
He
Or is
was.
okay. So
Yep,
it's
there's
yeah. So it's archival footage. Like, was Lou Reed alive when he was making this?
no, he
Okay.
the only members of the band that are still alive are the drummer, Mo Tucker, and then oh God, what is his name? Their former guitarist. So
Okay.
he's pretty famous in his own right. He went on to be a solo artist, and I think he did pretty good. John Cale.
Okay.
So John Cale still alive, and then Mo Tucker still alive. So he got interviews from them, and he got interviews from a bunch of people who were kind of in Andy Warhol's clique from that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Because there's a lot of examples to go for that. That was a
mhm.
that was a pretty wide cohort.
Yeah.
Yeah, even for that time.
Uh-huh. So
So
yeah, it's fun, but it's not informative really in the slightest.
yeah,
And if you have Apple TV Plus, it's kind of one of those things where it's like might as well watch it.
because that's the thing. I easily could just like because I'm an Apple Music customer, and I could easily fold TV Plus into that and like upgrade whatever I have.
Mhm.
And the thing I might do it for is Foundation, which is the next thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
the okay? So what have you so that's out? Have you seen any of it?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I've seen. I believe it's a weekly show, and I believe the first 6 episodes are out, and I've seen all of them.
okay,
And I find it interesting, but here's the thing: I like Dune,
hmm
our big topic for tonight. I have never read the book,
okay,
so that's kind of the eye I'm going into it with. And from what I've heard, um, people who like the book do not like this show, and they are saying that it does the book a disservice, sort of.
really,
And
okay,
yeah, they're saying that it actually doesn't even follow the book, from what I understand. It's just set in the same universe.
yeah, because like as someone who grew up reading all the like high science fiction worth reading because it's what my parents' library was filled with.
Mm-hmm.
Like Foundation was one of those holy grails, like Dune, and Lord of the Rings. It's like before the dominoes started falling. But the thing about Foundation, genuinely, is that it is the most fucking boring and like interminable read of all. Like of all the canon that exists, it's Isaac Asimov was not a good writer, okay? He could not write action, and he had good high concept. It's an interesting idea, obviously. But there's a reason why no one ever fucking made it into anything until now. Because you would have to do quite a lot of heavy lifting to make it interesting. Because the books themselves are written like anthologies. Like the first 6 chapters take place in this time, in this setting, on this planet. The next 6 chapters are 500 years in the future on this planet. The next section is like 20 years from that other point in a different planet. And then this story takes place back here entirely on a spaceship when this other event that was mentioned earlier is going on. So it's all
Uh-huh.
very disparate. It's all spread around. And that's how the book was written. And that was the whole point of the book, was seeing the Harry Seldon's plan implemented and then in action over centuries. And yeah, like you really had to be a nerd in the 60s to think that this shit was cool.
Yeah.
And you still need to be a nerd in the 60s to think that Isaac Asimov couldn't use with a little bit of, modern Hollywood screenwriting mojo. Because you got to do something. You got to do something to make Foundation exciting. Because
Mm-hmm.
at its core, it is exciting. All the exciting shit does not happen in the book. It happens in the background. Like, there's literally, like there's big build up to this massive battle in one of the books. Like, in the first book, in, like, the middle section, like, where you're like, oh no, are the barbarians going to invade? Yeah, like, what's the name of the planet where the Foundation lives on? Is it Trantor is the capital, and then
Yeah.
there's where Foundation is located at. I forget the name of the planet, but like,
Yeah.
oh no, are we gonna get invaded by these barbarians or not? And it's like
Terminus.
Terminus. Yeah, it's like, is Terminus gonna get conquered, or are we gonna still be the bastion of civilization? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, if this battle happens and we win, then everything will be okay. And then you read in like the next chapter that, oh yeah, we won the battle and everything is okay. But you don't see the battle. You don't know what it was like on the ships, while all the lasers are flying. You miss out on all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing that makes me want to watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hearing that quote unquote purists are having an issue with it makes me actually want to watch it. Because
Okay.
if there was a literal adaptation of Foundation, it would suck. It would
Mm-hmm.
suck donkey dick. and that's why like Jonathan Nolan couldn't get HBO to pull the trigger on this show when he was trying to pitch it to them. Is he
Okay.
still the showrunner for this thing?
No, it's actually David S. Goyer.
Oh, so it's in the family,
Yeah.
He was just like, "Hey, David, I've given up on this. I did Westworld instead. You have it." God, David S. Goyer. God, I don't know. I don't know how that makes me feel.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
sucks, but the thing about the show is it actually is so it is like what you're saying, where there are multiple stories going on, and there are episodes, there are times where characters will disappear for entire episodes
Mm-hmm.
and you won't see them again for like 2 episodes later.
Yeah.
And they'll focus on one of the stories in one episode, and then the next episode will be on a different story.
Yeah.
And so they're doing that. They're doing the jumping around time and jumping around planets. And uh the one thing I will say is Lee Pace plays the emperor.
Yeah. Just hamming
um
it up, huh? Just fucking
he is carrying the show on his shoulders.
good for him.
He
God
is
bless
like,
Lee Pace.
yeah, he
Yeah.
is like, he is absolutely carrying the show, and his performance is worth watching the show for,
Right
like,
on.
alone. Yeah,
Right on.
and then beyond that, the show, it looks really good. It looks like,
It's
you know,
movie
to go
quality.
yeah, to go
Yeah.
back to Dune, it looks like the scenes from Dune, the planet scenes, it
Mm-hmm.
looks like that. And I do think the show is worth watching. From what I understand, the people who have a problem with it only started having a problem with this latest episode because, without spoiling it too much, they introduce a sort of Death Star like ship,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where it's going, and that's kind of the driving action of the show. And so I'm curious to see where it goes, but um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if the plot is really going to play out like everybody wants it to.
Well, that's just kind of the thing. Like, I've read every single Foundation book, and none of it stuck with me. Like, Foundation was the the series that turned me off, but I read it because I felt like I had to.
Sure.
And honestly, the more interesting Foundation books are deeper in the canon.
Mhm.
Especially, well, yeah, as soon as the mule shows up as a character, those the stories become a lot more interesting because he's like a not too like I guess like yeah like I really can't describe the mule without spoiling the character, so I'm just gonna leave it out there for you. But
Okay.
it's a welcome addition because what becomes boring about reading Foundation is that Harry Seldon is right way too like all the time. He's just always right,
Hmm.
and that's the foundation of psychohistory is that this dude is right about everything. And
Yeah.
what's wonderful about the introduction of the mule later on is realizing that even science is fallible, I guess. And that's when the broad strokes of the storytelling become a lot more interesting because it becomes a lot more contained and it's
Hmm.
not so spread out and disparate, and the narrative becomes a lot more linear and stops time jumping. Like
Okay.
it calms down, as there actually is a story to tell as opposed to just a bunch of short stories, because that's what they're basically doing with this first season. What they're adapting is a bunch of short stories that Isaac Asimov slapped together and called a novel.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's what you're dealing with as far as that's concerned.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
yeah,
it's, it's worth watching. I'd recommend it. Um,
no,
it's
I'm
probably
definitely more interested because after watching Dune, I am just jonesing for
yeah.
spaceships that look to be of a certain era. But before we jump into Dune, we're
Well,
just
did
yeah.
did you
Oh,
real
sorry,
quick?
real
Do
quick.
you want to? I think we had some other stuff planned for this, but do you want to just, since we're
Jump.
running a little long here, do you want to
Yeah,
just move on to Dune,
let's
and
just jump right into Dune.
we
The
can hit these other things next week maybe, because
yeah,
I think they're kind of they're things that can be mentioned at any time,
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like we called that category in the outline the mentionables because it's just like, oh hey, here's a thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and those things will always be there, and
Mhm.
they're just like good little recommendations, things that we pick up, things that we've actually had some time to do. Because that's the thing. We were going to talk a little bit about Death Stranding because I take it you were able to play it on your PS5.
Yep.
Yeah, was that
Mhm.
the director's cut?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, because like I have a confession. I bought Death Stranding and I installed it and I played through like the first 3 hours and I haven't picked it up since. I've been meaning to, but
Okay.
I am interested in hearing if the director's cut is at all an experience worth having. But yeah, let's just get right down to it. I'm just gonna queue up some fancy little footage here so we can have something to talk over. But the day finally came. Like little boy Chuck was waiting his entire life for this. Oh god dang it. I lost you on that screen. Oh well. I don't Oh, I think I lost the zoom window. Well, I don't know. It's not a problem on that one. Whatever. We're just gonna go with this.
Okay.
But right off the bat, man, your first impressions. Like where are you at with Dune as a cinematic experience?
Yeah. So just for reference, the kind of way the way that we're approaching this is I'm not a book reader and Chuck is, and I've read about the first 100 pages of Dune, and then I kind of found it a little bit too impenetrable.
Yes.
And then I've seen the 1984 David Lynch movie, but so that's kind of my thoughts going into it. And so in kind of in short, I really like this movie,
Right on.
and I thought that like it's one of my probably my favorites of the year. I think it's nice to jump into like for me anyways, a new fantasy world
Mm-hmm.
or a new
Yeah.
sci-fi world.
Yeah.
It's just nice to have a new like world to play in, and um yeah, it's so huge and ambitious, and I'm really glad that Warner Brothers like fronted so much money.
Oh, thank God bless him, because this
Yeah.
fucking thing cost an arm, a leg, and a fucking head to fucking
Yeah.
make. Like by every aspect of it. Like the cast is fucking pitch fucking perfect. I can't say that enough. But yeah, like the all the special effects, the music, like it all was done in a very genuine way that
Mhm.
yeah that like I clearly could tell that Denny Villeneuve, however you say his name, how do you say his name?
I think it's Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve, Denny
Yeah.
Villeneuve. That he like just like how Peter Jackson loved and treasured Lord of the Rings, you could tell that this guy loves Dune just as much. And he
Mhm.
was finally getting his chance to just make the fucking movie he saw in his head when he read the book, however old he was. And yeah, my takeaway in general, very fucking happy with it.
Mhm.
You know, not butthurt at all about what wasn't there explicitly, because what, what he did and like what the collective effort behind it, accomplished was that everything that was in the text that anybody might miss, it still is in that fucking movie. You can
Mhm.
clearly sense it, you can feel it. It is there just by implication at times. Like I can't. I'll get more specific as it occurs to me as we talk. But as I was watching it, I wasn't just going like, "Oh, Tom Bombadil didn't show up. That's not right." Like
Mhm.
it very much was okay. We have the important beats we need to have, but we don't need to have this laborious laying out of this inevitable thing that we know is going to happen. And what bogged you down in that first like 200 pages, 100 pages of the book, whatever it was, is that plotting of setting everything out. Like Frank Herbert, as a writer, hated plot. Like he hated putting plot into his books because to
Okay.
him it was like they call it plot because it's the same sound that an animal makes as it's shitting the story out as it walks along. So that's the kind of that's the perspective of the person who wrote this. And but what they did with this movie though was just be like, okay, yeah, I need $160 million, Warner Brothers, and I'm going to take the most boring part of Dune and make a fucking tentpole science fiction movie out of it, but it's just the first half. You're gonna have to pay me another 160 million to make the other half of this thing, because that is the density of the work. That is the full, rich complexity of the source material, the world building, the sandbox that we get to play in, now. Because Westeros is dead and gone to us, even though we're still waiting on the final books to end that particular story. But with Dune, the wonder of it is the fact that Herbert did not mine the mountain that he was working with either. There was a lot that he left mysterious. There's quite a bit that isn't explicitly stated. And while he did have a lot of like epigraphs and weird little preambles to chapters, if you read that book, there isn't like a massive appendice, of like this, like of just nerd dump, from Frank Herbert, so you can fully understand the mythology of the world. There's a whole lot about Dune that is the source material that we still don't fucking know, unless you believe the shit books that his son has churned out recently. If we're just talking the books that Frank Herbert wrote, there's so much shit that is just said and never explained. And kind of like how the Clone Wars were cooler before we knew what they were from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. It's like when I was watching the movie, what occurred to me was, oh my goodness, this thing is like I am seeing all of the shit from pop culture that was inspired by Dune within it. Like the big thing that I loved that they and this is an addition, is actually giving the Sardaukar some culture, giving the Imperial, like, even though like the Emperor doesn't appear, which makes me happy. I'm glad that we don't know what the Emperor looks like yet. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that so much of the Dune universe was contained from the audience. Like, it bugged me initially. It was like, why did they shave this story down to the bone like this? Mm-hmm. It kind of bugged me. But as I was watching it, I was like, no, like, all that's important is what we're getting. It's what's going on with Paul. What is his metaphysical journey? And what does the character know to be inevitable? Something bad is going to happen to them on Arrakis. If you're reading the book, it's all these characters going, yeah, we're walking into a trap. We all know we're going to fucking die, if we don't play this exactly right. And none of us know if we're making the right decisions. Like, all the tension and drama over who the traitor is pretty irrelevant once you know who it is. So why waste time building up who it's going to be and wasting like energy on the drama of that? Just focus on the broad storytelling. And that was a wise choice ultimately, because that's what killed the David Lynch version.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you watch that movie, it's literally just like 15 minutes of being talked to, and then something happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to kind of broad strokes here. What did you think of like the look of the film? As far as compared to how you pictured it in your head, is it kind of similar, or is it?
Well, that's the thing. As I was watching it, the shot in particular that made me feel this way was the Herald of the Change, like the ship coming down to Caladan to do that ceremony, and you just see this orb descending in front of them, and then the egg opens up and the ramp just perfectly. You know what I'm talking about?
One that was it. The one that the Herald was on.
Yeah,
the guy with the scroll.
The guy with the scroll. Yeah.
Yep.
Which is also a cool little addition. It's like the Herald of the Change is mentioned in passing in a memory in the book, but now that scene gets to just be front and center, and we get to use that to inform so much of it. And like, what did you think about like all the costumes, like all the wardrobe of like the guild navigators, like the fact that they had them so covered with those weird like the dome hats and like the hoods that they had,
Oh yeah.
because like in the source material, no one has ever seen a guild navigator, like in the source
Okay.
material, like and it's because like they consume and are exposed to so much spice that they aren't human anymore. Like that they've taken on a different shape. So like in the Lynch version, they were these slug creatures. In the miniseries, they were these bat people.
Mm.
Like and and it's a to credit the director in this instance, they're hidden. They're, like I said, they're contained. So
Hmm.
much of like that, like of the minutia that would have just bogged down the story, like I say, it's present, it's contained. You can find it if you want to, you can see it if you want to. Like in part, like I brought up the Sardaukar earlier, but like the throat singing, like that kind of creative choice to have
Yeah.
that stuff
The
was really really cool.
the like didgeridoo noises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did it trip you out when the movie began with the didgeridoo and then a subtitle?
Yeah. Yeah. The first time that happened, because I should mention too, I've seen this twice now. I watched it at home and then I went to it in the theater.
And I did the opposite. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, when I got
that,
home, I was like, "What the fuck was that?" So yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah. That
yeah,
was very strange, especially because it was before the like movie studio
it was
logos.
before everything.
Yeah.
It was
It was
so
weird.
odd. Yeah, like I don't know, and I wondered because like yeah, because so much of what Dune is metaphysically about, is like how does an individual grapple with omniscience,
Hmm.
or with prescience. Like how does a rational mind rationalize knowing things they shouldn't know? And so much of the movie is about that. It's all about Paul and his dreams. So to start the movie out with, I don't know why it's a Sardaukar saying it, but it is, because the subtitles on the home presentation say, like, it tells you that it's in Sardaukar, that
Okay.
it's not in English, and they give you the subtitle, of like what the text is. And the only other time that sound is heard is on Salusa Secundus when Piter is basically overseeing the initiation of the troops that are going to be sent with the Harkonnens to Arrakis
Yeah.
to kill everybody. That's the only other time we experience the throat singing. And I
Hmm.
don't know why I'm so hung up on it, but it was just a neat little addition that has no basis in the source material that just gave me so many wonderful questions and things I wanted to know more about. And it's all about the things that we haven't gotten to see him interpret yet, like what the Emperor looks like what that culture looks like. Because even the court that they showed in that
Hmm.
Herald of the Change scene, they all look like extras in the background of a cantina scene in Star Wars. They have all these weird helmets and masks on, and they're all just very mysterious and ominous. And yeah, because it's Atreides against the universe,
Yeah.
and they establish that very effectively with that Herald of the Change scene.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
yeah, and the way that
Uh,
that ship looked, because your initial question was how things looked. Sorry,
yeah, how
but
things looked.
uh,
Yeah. Like the
and
ship.
yeah, it's like it looked like straight off the cover of a science fiction novel from the 70s. It looked perfect.
Yeah.
It's everything I would have hoped it would be. As far
Mhm.
as how things looked, and like how the guild ships were just these giant, like hollowed out cylinders.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
the way that they differentiated the cultures was effective, and like I don't know, like the Harkonnens are just always like you have to make them look evil because they're just the evil people. They can't be ambiguous.
Mhm.
But what struck me as I was watching the Sardaukar initiation scene with like the rows of crucified people being bled out so that they can appropriately baptize the Sardaukar soldiers, it just made me realize that, okay, so this is where 40K gets all their shit from.
Sure.
This is where, like, because the whole like, because I watch a lot of lore videos about 40K just because it's interesting to me,
Hmm.
and especially the Emperor of Man, because literally the Emperor of Man is just Paul Atreides and all of his power of omniscience placed
Hmm.
into that universe, and the Astartes, the Space Marines, are basically just his Sardaukar or his Fedaykin. As you in the second movie, you get to find out about Paul making his own army of Fremen, zealot warriors. But I don't know, like what I was appreciating was just like, because much like Yodawarski's Dune, that documentary revealed,
Hmm.
so much shit has just sprung forth from the carcass of people trying to make Dune into a movie, and from Dune itself into other mediums, tabletop gaming or what have you. And it's just nice to see the real OG getting its fair treatment. Because I don't know, growing up reading about the Sardaukar, being able to actually see them,
Yeah.
I do share your criticism that the combat was muted and then therefore rendered pointless by how they chose to affect the shields. Because anytime, because did you kind of, they don't like literally spell it out, but like the way that shield combat worked in Dune, do you, why do you think they fought like that? Do you even like, is there a reason, like, why do you think they use swords instead of guns?
Oh, and in the, you
Yeah.
mean like the actual reason they give? Oh, I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
they don't give one in the movie. You'd have to read the book
yeah,
to know. But that's what I mean. It's like there's an immensity of hows and whys and reasons, but it's really fucking boring just to have someone tell you in a movie. So you just don't fucking do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just to give people context because you're
Yeah.
kind of referencing something that we haven't talked about
I guess so,
here,
yeah. Yeah.
but to give people context, um, I had said in a review, a posted review, that the combat looked kind of cheesy or lame, and basically
Yeah.
what I mean by that is I think it was kind of part that and then part the like the rating, the PG-13 rating,
Yeah.
because it just the one-on-one scenes I thought looked pretty good, where it was just kind of one-on-one duels, or that scene where Oscar Isaac is sneaking around
Mm-hmm.
the corridor, and then the dart gets shot at him,
Yeah,
and
and
it
he's trying to
kind of,
grab it before it gets
yeah,
through. Yeah. And
yep,
that was cool. Like that
yeah,
wasn't
that was cool.
that wasn't from that was original.
Okay.
That was them playing with the mechanics of the world that they were, that they had, manufactured, and it was
Hmm.
logical. Yeah.
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 So yeah, I mean that stuff was all cool, but I when it became sort of the big battles, there was two big ones. There was the actual battle
Mm-hmm.
when the Sardaukar invaded, and then there was the Paul's dream or Paul's vision,
Yeah.
and it just looks bad. It just kind of looked like a clump of like a bunch of red and blue flashes, and
Yeah.
then people sort of bloodlessly slashing at each other.
Yeah. Like somehow penetrating plate armor.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like it's more realistic that you'd get like an exposed area,
yeah.
or like there'd be a specific weak spot that they could get through.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the dumb lore reason for why they fight like that is because that shield technology is so pervasive. But if
Mhm.
you would use laser beams on a shield, it would cause a nuclear explosion.
Okay,
So
sure.
so even just like shooting a handheld laser gun at someone wearing a body shield could nuke a planet
Mhm.
accidentally. So to mitigate that, they use knives and blades because the slow penetration can get through a shield, but a
Yeah,
fast one will be blocked. But yeah, the all the different flashes of the blue flash means that it kept it out. Red flash means that it's gotten through you, or maybe it's blood misting inside of the shield. I don't know, but yeah, it worked until it didn't. And when you have a massive bodies on a screen all doing that same thing, you can't even tell what you're looking at. especially when the two factions fighting each other effectively have the same colors for their uniforms. That doesn't help because like everything is very brown and not very distinct. Like in the Westwood Studios RTS game, like Atreides is blue, Harkonnen is red. You know, it's very obvious who is who. You know,
Sure.
and even in the sci-fi miniseries that they did, it was coded in much the same way. And they also had very specific outfits that all like each side would wear. Like the Sardaukar had black berets for some reason. Like it looked really cheesy. Like the don't watch the miniseries if you care about if you liked this movie, just stick with this movie. Like, you watch the miniseries if you wanna watch the book as faithfully as possible. Yeah.
But what about like let's move on here because we're kind of running long. I think we got to kind of speed things up. But as far as like acting goes, so that's my only other like big criticism with the movie. I liked Timothy Chalamet. I liked Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson. You know, everyone was good. The one thing I did was kind of iffy on was Jason Momoa. Mostly because I don't know anything about really the book character, but I find him as an actor to be very like one note.
The character in the book is very one note. He was perfectly cast because Duncan Idaho in the book exists to be Paul's hero, you know, on occasion be a badass and then die off screen. So the fact that they gave him his heroic death in this movie was very satisfying for me. Because in the book, you don't even get to experience it. You find out how he died in one of the later books when he is eventually resurrected and cloned. Because here's the thing. He may be a one-note character in this story, but Duncan Idaho becomes one of the most important characters in all of Dune because they simply will not let the character die. Like, this is spoiler warning, but...
Well, they hint at that.
They do.
Yeah, with the Paul's vision of him living with the
Fremen. Well,
the Fremen,
he doesn't live with the no.
Oh, he doesn't. Okay.
So like he is dead, and a later in Dune Messiah, there's an antagonistic faction that somehow got his genetic material from that facility on Arrakis to their planet. And then they make like a whole industry out of making clones of him and then selling them to Paul and Paul's children, you know, like as an advisor over the years. So so Duncan Idaho is not gone from the franchise. Duncan Idaho is back in the sequel when we actually get to Dune 2, not Dune Part 2.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess just in context of the movie, I don't know. I just find Jason Momoa to be like, he plays Jason Momoa. He doesn't play any other characters.
Yeah, it's like even when he's Aquaman, it's just like, oh, it's that guy who's himself in everything he's done. You know. Yeah. He's not that. He's a great presence. He looks good on a poster.
He has charisma.
He has great charisma.
Yeah.
But he did everything he was expected to do. Just be a badass and kill people and then die heroically. Because there's a passing reference in like Dune Messiah to the fact that he took down like 19 Sardaukar on his own. No one's ever fucking done that. So, you know, Villeneuve just goes and says, all right, we'll just actually put it in the movie. You know, we have to have something in that second act. Because when I was watching it at home, I was trying to look at the pacing of the movie. You know, and what blew my fucking mind was that we're like an hour 15 in, and the Sardaukar are invading. The Harkonnens have won, and Duke Leto is literally naked at a table while Stellan Skarsgård eats food. You know, like it takes no time at all for them to go to what is basically like the first 200 pages of the book we get by hour 15. Like, that's how much shit has been cut out. And so, like, there is something to be said about certain characters like Tufir Hawat and Gurney Halleck, especially, they barely got anything to do in this movie, and that's unfortunate. But the good news is they should be in the second one. They should be in the follow up, and they should be more present. But what's going to be missing, especially for both characters actually, is because this isn't in the first act of the movie at all, is the mystery of who the traitor is, because they know there's a traitor. The movie doesn't even mention a traitor, like outside of the Baron Harkonnen bringing it up. And
what about the doctor?
The doctor brings up a traitor.
No, he is the traitor.
He is the traitor. But but the mystery of who the traitor is front and center in the book. Okay. It's like there's actually like a major scene where the Mentat Tufir Hawat is confronted by Jessica because she's like, "Motherfucker, you're telling my husband that he should be worried about me? You think I'm the fucking spy? I am the one trying to figure out who the fucking spy is." Because there was this whole other plot line where Jessica is on her own, trying to protect her husband and her son and herself over everybody else's priorities. And that basically just gets shoved to the side. And it was funny to me because in the lead up to the press on this, they just talked about how, we've given Jessica a hell of a lot more to do. Jessica's going to be, we've upgraded and modernized her character. They did jack shit. They gave her less to do. They took away a lot of like the agency that the character had herself. Even though she was no longer, they do kind of highlight how she's cast out from the Bene Gesserit. She really did strike out on her own when because as a Bene Gesserit, she can control the gender of her child. It's not explicitly said in the movie, but it's hinted at that she was supposed to have a daughter. And she was supposed to have a daughter. She was supposed to have a baby girl that was going to be married off to the Harkonnen heir, so that there would be peace between the two families, and then their son, and then their child would be the Kwisatz Haderach, the Messiah that we've been breeding like for fucking millennia now, and you fucked it all up, Jessica. Like all of that happened because she was like, well, I love my Duke. He's not my husband. He's my Duke. He wants to have a son, so I'm going to make him have a son. And the consequences, of that decision, I say the word metaphysics a lot because that's really what is going on in Dune, is this question of can you manipulate a prophecy to your own benefit if you can make the events within it transpire? But what does it actually mean if those events transpire? Because you could just say, oh yeah, you check all the boxes, you're the Kwisatz Haderach. You're the one who we've been waiting for. You're the Mahdi. You're like the one that the Fremen have been waiting for, because the Bene Gesserit have sowed the Kwisatz Haderach legends on Arrakis amongst the Fremen. That's kind of alluded to as well, when the Reverend Mother is like, we've helped them all we can. We've paved the way. It's like, it's up to you to do something with it. So, I guess, yeah, the screenwriters, the directors, they honed the story in on that one specific aspect, which is the one that matters.
Sure.
Which is
let's go back. Let's go back to the movie though a bit. We're kind of spending a lot of time on what the book says and the sequels,
and that's my failing. Yeah, because it's what I know. Yeah, but
so as far as what did you think of the way that because take Javier Bardem, for instance. He had 2 scenes in the movie. Yes. And so as far as the Fremen are portrayed, and I assume they appear more, or they'll appear more in the sequel, right?
The whole sequel is just nothing about Paul and Jessica amongst the Fremen.
Okay.
That's what I thought. It's the Lawrence of Arabia section of the story. Because that's another, keystone, inspiration for the text. But the Fremen are portrayed perfectly. They were always supposed to have a Middle Eastern flair to them. Okay. A lot of the language they speak is this weird Pashtun mixture of a bunch of different like Arab and like nomadic languages. And Javier Bardem, great. Like is of all the iterations of Stilgar, he is the most Stilgar. Like the way that he's just like, okay, I'm done with this meeting, and he just fucking walks out. That was I was just like, good. Like, don't belabor the point. It's like, I'm here, I'm gone. I got more important things to do. That I liked that, but I did feel that the whole like section at the end with the Fremen a little rushed, but that's just because they're trying to keep it under 3 hours. Mm-hmm. But I still was very satisfied with how the like all the different actors playing the Fremen, like we're doing their scenes in that, like especially after Paul kills Jameis and they're all like touching him, because they all know that pain. They've all had to kill a friend, and you can kind of tell. It's like they aren't mad at him. This is just what fucking happens in the desert. So I like it just kind of goes without saying. Like they get it. Like the people making this get the source material. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem with how they're fucking making this movie, then you're never going to be happy. Like just be happy that it's happening and that it's being done with such a careful hand. They genuinely care about the source material. They love it, and everybody involved in it, whether or not they care about the source material, they're selling it. Everyone is like doing good work. Like especially the lady who played Jessica. I was really surprised by her. She did
Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, like she did a lot with a little, because a lot of what makes her character isn't in the movie and couldn't be in the movie they were making. But sure. But the anguish that she's going through during the Gom Jabbar scene, that was a nice addition that I felt conveyed quite a bit, because she knew what she was fucking doing. And in the book and in every other adaptation, Jessica is just this cold, calculating bitch. No other word for it. But in this one, she was human, and the emotion of all the characters is a lot more present and much more of a concern, because it's a very flat. The source material is very flat emotionally, because you have this literal God King awakening over the course of the story. Because the more exposed to spice he gets, the more prescient he becomes, the more powerful his abilities become in that regard. And so we might lose more of Chalamet as the second movie progresses, but as far as this first movie goes, all of the everything that was added by the filmmakers and the actors was worth it. Not a false note. I wouldn't take anything away. I would just embrace the violence a little more, embrace the brutality of it all, because if we're gonna have literal space marines in a fucking movie, we should be able to see the blood splattering on the walls a little bit, because that's what we're working with here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think of the I'm assuming this is not in the book, but the sort of repeating the phrase sand power?
Nope, that's in the book.
Is that in the book?
Yes. Okay. Yes. No, that's
I thought they just came up with that for the movie.
No.
I thought that was interesting how, Oscar Isaac says it first, and then he says it again when they get to Arrakis. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, Paul says it when he sees the guy
riding the worm.
Yeah. Which was another kind of reveal. I mean, I'm sure that you knew about that, but I think that was kind of a nice reveal, because I didn't know about that. And then
riding the sandworms?
Yeah.
Oh, right on. Well, yeah, because they hint at it with Kynes getting ready. Yeah.
Nobody knows what she's doing though. I had no idea, because she pulls out those
the hooks.
The hooks, and she's sort of getting it ready, and then she gets stabbed, and it was like, okay, what was she?
Well, yeah, and then she just keeps on thumping. She keeps the thumper going so that the worm will get her. Yeah, because. If you don't mind me explaining what she was getting, because what those hooks, like what they do is they set the thumper, they wait for the worm to breach the sand and expose itself, and then they latch the hooks onto its side and they pull its scales back. Okay. And then the worm is like, I'm exposed, and then it rolls over so that they're on top, and then they keep the scale open, and then
Okay.
the worm won't go back into the sand because it will irritate it. So it doesn't want to do that. So it'll just ride on the surface instead. Yeah,
Okay.
like so, and when Paul rides a worm on his own for the first time in the book, that's going to be in the second movie, obviously. And
Mhm.
it's anticlimactic in the books because he does it with other people's help a bunch. But then when
Okay.
he actually is doing it on his own, like that's a cool sequence that's gonna be happening for us. But yeah, that desert power line, yeah, that's from the source material. It's very deliberate, and yeah, the whole like illusion, like the what Duke Leto is realizing is, oh shit, you got some fucking badasses on this planet. There's way more of them than anybody could imagine. And if they become my friends, then I will run this fucking planet. And
Okay.
potentially, and then therefore the whole fucking world. Yeah,
Mhm.
because the Harkonnen think that there's just like a few thousand Fremen. The reality is there's like millions of them. But they're just
Yeah.
so fucking good at hiding and keeping themselves hidden that that nobody like that the rest of the universe is ignorant to the power sitting there.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
yeah, and so like much like how the Sardaukar are this dedicated, it's like the Solus Secundus is a prison planet where people are trained into being zealot warriors, and Paul is going to develop his own army of zealot warriors that
Sure.
are given something that nobody is given. They're going to be given training in Bene Gesserit, tactics, and that runs the gamut from the voice, getting people to do things, when you tell them to being able to move unnaturally fast. Yeah, so that's the shit that is in the text. It's contained from the audience so that they don't have to think about it.
Mhm.
But but I did but at the same time there was the exposition scenes that are in the movie are handled just like in the books, where it's Paul just literally like listening to a YouTube video.
Oh yeah, the little projector thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. And in the book, there's a cute little scene where Dr. Yui gives it to him, and it's like, this was my wife's old dictionary book thing. You have it, because she's dead, or like she's being a prisoner. So yeah, like it's all stuff that was only necessary if you were setting up the mystery of who the traitor was,
Mhm.
and planting red herrings and giving genuine clues.
Sure.
But within this movie, it works because it's like, yeah, how can we quickly tell people who the Fremen are? Even
Mhm.
though they kind of do that in that little opening sequence with Chani, where
Yeah.
she's narrating it. And yeah, that's a like Zendaya barely in this fucking movie.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
disappears for like other than the visions. Yeah, she doesn't have an actual like speaking line until the end of the movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
an actual on-screen like seeing her mouth speaking line. Like
Yeah, she obviously she's going to be front and center. She's the love interest,
yep.
the one that he's doomed to be with because he's been dreaming about her, even before he got to Arrakis. And they didn't reveal it in this movie, but like, and I guess technically they don't reveal it for some time within the timeline, like relatively, like in, but because Liet Kynes, is obviously the gender bended role that did not
Mhm.
offend me. You know, Liet Kynes, like most characters in Dune, pretty one note.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she was an exposition machine.
exactly. That's what she was there for. And and but yeah, they gave her a much more heroic death than the book version of the character. The book character just gets dumped into the desert without any supplies and is eaten by a worm. Like
Okay.
that's the end of that character. But if there was a character, if there were characters that were underserved that we're gonna get more from, it's the Mentat, Hawat, it's Gurney
Mhm.
Halleck. Because like in the book, Gurney Halleck gets this awesome sequence where he's trying to like escape So he's with some Fremen, and like all of the other Atreides are wiped out, and
Yep.
the Sardaukar are like wiping out all these people, and then like two Fremen show up and kill all the Sardaukar.
Okay.
While Gertie Halleck is just like, what the fuck? This like going like this. But then eventually he escapes with smugglers and returns to the story later. And Hawat gets absorbed into the Harkonnens because the Baron loses his mentat.
Mhm.
And that's the sad thing. We didn't get enough Peter de Vries, or Piter. We didn't get enough Piter, especially with an actor like Dalmatian, or however you say his name, in the role. There's just a lot more that we could have gotten out of that evil little bastard.
Sure.
But I'd have to ask you, what did you think of the fucking like
The spider
the
thing?
spider thing with the human hands? Like, what the
Yeah.
drinking out of a bowl? Like, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. I don't even know what that thing is supposed to be.
Yeah, that was weird. Some people I know have speculated online that was actually like the doctor's wife, that they like that the the Harkonnens like
Fuck.
turned into that thing
That's
because
it's evil.
yeah. So I don't know though, but yeah, that was cool. That was another good touch. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess just to kind of, I don't really have much else to say other than there was two things that I wanted to touch on. One is just kind of a fun thing. The Apocalypse Now reference. Did you catch that?
What was that?
That was the very first time that we saw the Baron, and he's in like that steam room, and then there's a shot of him rubbing his head.
Yes.
Rubbing his bald head.
Yes.
And that was straight up
Brando.
Marlon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my god. That didn't even occur to me. So what did you think of the Baron? Like, how did you think like Skarsgård did? He didn't have a lot of scenes, but
yeah, he doesn't have a lot of scenes, and I mean he seemed fine. He was was very menacing, and the floating thing is weird, especially in the scene the scene where they have Oscar Isaac's character, and he does the floating thing over the table, but
out of focus.
Yeah, out of focus, and his toes are kind of dragging on the table.
Yeah,
because it's almost as if it can't hold them up all the way.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
That was cool,
because that was my question. Because like the shot where he almost looks like a worm person, and he's like, "My Dune."
Oh yeah,
like I thought. Well, so are they just like, are they half-assing it? Like, are they not? Is it not actually lifters anymore? But no, yeah, and in that later on, we do get to see it actually just. Yeah, struggle lifting him up.
Yeah. And then, well, was there anything else you wanted to touch on, or?
I guess that really is it. In general, I advise people to see this movie because I need another one in my life, and that will only happen if you motherfuckers go fucking watch it. HBO Max is all well and good, but let me tell you that theatrical experience, it's unlike any other. There's nothing else out in theaters right now that will be as much bang for your buck. It looks like $160 million on screen because it is. And this is one of our finest directors working on a storied, property that he actually cares about, which is a rare thing in this, day and age where you have Chloe Zhao having to pretend that she, thinks the Eternals is a very important work for her as an Academy Award winning filmmaker.
Yep.
Yeah. But looking ahead to next week, we have Last Night in Soho. I think that's the one we're planning on. I'm planning to see that in theaters.
So Last Night in Soho. That's kind of the one that we agreed upon that we would talk about next week.
And because I just have to ask, is Army of Thieves already coming out?
Yeah, so Army of Thieves comes out on Friday, the 29th. And that's the
prequel to Army of the Dead.
Yep.
Most unnecessary thing in the world. It's just where the fuck did this movie come from? Is it just because the actor who plays the safecracker is a filmmaker himself? Is that
Yeah, well,
why?
yeah, because he's the director too, and I'm assuming. I mean, it's my assumption that this film was incredibly easy to make,
Uh-huh.
and it was done on a fraction of the budget that Army of the Dead was. So
Yeah,
they were probably just able to pump it out,
it looks like they pumped it out.
But yeah, I think that's kind of do it for
All in
for the
all,
podcast this week. But
yeah. So this was from the Mezzanine. We just talked your ear off about all sorts of shit, and thank you for joining us.
mhm.
And we will see you all next week. So
Yep.
take care, Matt, and I'll see you at the movies.
All right.